On February 24, 2023, police responded to a home in Herndon, Virginia. Inside, they found 2 bodies and a crime scene that didn't add up. What investigators uncovered wasn't a home invasion. It was something far more calculated, a conspiracy that began with an affair and ended with 2 people dead. This is Case Files Explained. Today we examine the Banfield double murder and the elaborate deception that prosecutors called one of the most disturbing cases they'd ever seen. Brendan Banfield was a former IRS agent. To his neighbors, he was a family man, a father, a husband, but behind that facade, he was planning murder. His accomplice, the family's Brazilian au pair, the woman hired to care for his children, the woman he was sleeping with, the woman who would eventually testify against him, and the victim lured to that house? A complete stranger named Joseph Ryan, catfished through a fake dating profile created in Christine Banfield's name. The Banfield family lived in an affluent Fairfax County neighborhood. Brendan worked for the IRS. Christine was a mother devoted to their children. From the outside, they had everything. In 2022, the family hired Juliana Peres Magalhães as their au pair. She was from Brazil, brought in through a cultural exchange program to help with the children. According to court testimony, by August 2022, Brendan Banfield had begun a sexual affair with Magalhães. She was living under the same roof as his wife and children. The au pair would later testify that Banfield told her he wanted to, quote, get rid of his wife. When she asked why he didn't simply file for divorce, his answer was chilling. He said that if they divorced, quote, she would have more money than he would. That was his reasoning. His wife's life was worth less to him than a divorce settlement. But Banfield didn't want anyone to know he'd killed his wife. He needed a way to make it look like someone else had done it. Someone the police would believe was the killer. That's when prosecutors say the catfishing scheme began. Using the website FetLife, a social network for people interested in alternative lifestyles, Banfield created a fake profile. He used his wife Christine's name and photographs. The profile suggested she was interested in BDSM role-play scenarios, specifically, scenarios involving home invasions and simulated assault. Joseph Ryan was a 40-year-old man who responded to this profile. He had no idea he was corresponding with Christine's husband. He thought he was arranging a consensual encounter. Ryan believed the woman on the other end wanted him to arrive unannounced to play a role. In reality, he was being set up as both murderer and victim. In the weeks before the murders, Banfield purchased a handgun. He also took the au pair to a shooting range twice to practice. Surveillance footage captured these visits. Prosecutors presented evidence that Banfield and Magalhães also traded in their cell phones for new ones and had the home's windows changed to improve soundproofing before the murders. They were eliminating digital evidence, they were muffling sound. Step by step, they were preparing to commit murder and get away with it. On the night of February 24, 2023, Joseph Ryan arrived at the Banfield home in Herndon, Virginia. He believed he was there for a consensual encounter with Christine. What happened inside that house remains a matter of court record. Christine Banfield and Joseph Ryan were both shot and killed. The children were home at the time. Banfield was charged with 2 counts of aggravated murder, child endangerment, and possession of a firearm in commission of a felony. In Virginia, aggravated murder carries mandatory life without parole. Initially, Banfield was not charged. The scene had been staged to look exactly as planned, a home invasion gone wrong, with Ryan appearing to be the attacker. It took investigators time to see through the deception. The break came when the au pair, Juliana Peres Magalhães, agreed to cooperate with prosecutors. She pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter and agreed to testify against her former lover. In January 2026, Brendan Banfield's trial began in Fairfax County. The prosecution's case rested heavily on digital evidence and the testimony of his former mistress. Magalhães took the witness stand and detailed the entire conspiracy. She testified that Banfield had orchestrated everything: the fake profile, the catfishing, the murder plan. Quote, "I wanted the truth to come out." She admitted her own role. She admitted the affair. and she admitted that she knew what was going to happen that night and did nothing to stop it. The defense argued that Magalhães was the true architect of the murders, that she had manipulated Banfield and was now shifting blame to save herself. But the digital evidence told a different story. Investigators recovered deleted messages, traced the fake profile creation to devices linked to Banfield, and documented the gun purchase and range visits. On February 2, 2026, after 2 days of deliberation, the jury returned its verdict. Herndon Banfield was found guilty on all counts. The conviction meant Tory life in prison without the possibility of parole. Herndon Banfield will never be a free man again. The au pair's fate was also determined by the courts. On February 13, 2026, Juliana Peres Magalhães was sentenced to 10 years in prison, the maximum allowed under her plea agreement. Prosecutors had initially recommended less time in exchange for her testimony, but the judge rejected that recommendation, citing the severity of her involvement in planning the murders. Christine Banfield was murdered by her own husband. Joseph Ryan was murdered simply for responding to a dating profile. 2 families destroyed by one man's refusal to accept a divorce. The Banfield children lost their mother that night. They also lost their father not to death, but to his own choices. They will grow up knowing what he did. This case highlights how digital evidence has transformed murder investigations. Deleted messages, fake profiles, phone purchase records, all recoverable, all admissible, all damning. Investigators today can reconstruct deleted text conversations, trace account creation to specific devices, and recover data that perpetrators believed was destroyed. Understanding aggravated murder versus other homicide charges matters. In Virginia, aggravated murder means premeditation and specific circumstances, like murder for hire or killing during another felony. The mandatory life sentence without parole that Banfield received reflects how seriously Virginia treats premeditated killing. There's no possibility of early release, no parole hearing, nothing. For accomplices who cooperate with prosecutors, plea agreements can reduce charges, but as Magalhães learned, judges aren't bound by sentencing recommendations. The court imposed the maximum. Some observers felt the au pair got off too easily for her role. Others argued she was manipulated by Banfield, a young woman in a foreign country, dependent on her employer, drawn into something terrible. If you're following true crime cases like this one and want to understand how evidence builds toward conviction, subscribe to the channel. We break down cases like this every week. The catfishing element makes this case particularly disturbing. Joseph Ryan thought he was going to meet someone. He had no idea he was walking into an ambush. The fake FetLife profile was created using Christine's name and photographs, stolen by her own husband to construct the trap. She became complicit in her own murder without ever knowing. Banfield thought he'd planned the perfect crime. A stranger arrives expecting a consensual encounter. Shots are fired. The scene looks like a home invasion interrupted. But he underestimated one thing. He underestimated the digital trail. Every fake profile, every message, every deleted text, all recoverable, and eventually all recovered. Cell phone records showed Banfield and Magalhães purchased new devices in the weeks before the murder, but the old phones were recovered. The data was extracted. The conspiracy was documented. What drove Herndon Banfield to murder rather than divorce? Greed, control. The calculation that his wife's life was worth less than splitting assets. And for Joseph Ryan, he paid the ultimate price for simply responding to a dating profile. He was in the wrong place because someone put him there deliberately. If you're ever in communication with someone online who suggests scenarios that seem unusual or potentially dangerous, trust your instincts. Verify identities. Meet in public places first. Online safety has become a matter of life and death. Catfishing can be used for fraud, for manipulation, and as this case shows, for murder. Herndon Banfield will spend the rest of his life in a Virginia state prison. He was 52 years old at the time of conviction. He will never walk free again. The au pair, Magalhães, will serve 10 years. She cooperated. She testified. But the court found her role too significant for the lighter sentence prosecutors had proposed. She told the court she wanted the truth to come out. Whether that was remorse or self-preservation, only she knows. But her words helped convict a killer. Christine Banfield and Joseph Ryan died because of one man's greed and another person's willingness to help him kill. Their families will carry that loss forever. The Banfield case reminds us that behind every murder statistic are real people, victims, families, communities forever changed by violence that should never have happened. This was Case Files Explained. The evidence has been presented. The verdict has been reached. Justice, such as it is, has been served.